Good afternoon, everyone. Good morning, those of you in the Americas or anywhere over that side of the world, and good evening to those of you in Asia. I'm Jeremy Smith, the co-founder of Tourism Declares a Climate Emergency. I'm your host for today for an hour-long discussion to explore how can tourism destinations face the climate emergency. I'm joined by three of the hosts from the recent Global Green Destinations Days. I'm joined by Alexia Panagiotopoulou from the City of Athens, Eri Suzuki from Neseko Town, and Matra Clemencich from the Slovenian Tourism Board. Thank you all very much. I'm going to hand over to each of them in a moment to ask them to introduce themselves and tell a little bit more about the context of their own destinations. And before I tell a little bit about myself, I'll just say only one piece of housekeeping, and that is that for those of you wishing to interact with the session, please use the Q&A function and write any questions that you would like me to put to our panelists in there. And I'm not promising to be able to ask all of them, but it'd be wonderful to see where your thoughts are, and at the appropriate times I will ask them. We'll see if we can come up with some answers for you. So as I said, my name is Jeremy Smith. I'm co-founder of Tourism Declares a Climate Emergency. We launched just under 2 years ago in January 2020, very much with the intention to bring our industry together around a science-based response to the climate emergency for our sector, working together transparently to share solutions and share challenges so that we could move forward as fast as possible. It grew very much out of what we were seeing happening in destinations. And when I say destinations, what I mean is the communities where we live and work, and of course the communities that we go on our holidays to. And what had happened outside of tourism was that communities around the world had begun to declare a climate emergency. The first one happened in 2016 when Darebin, in a suburb of northern Melbourne, Australia, declared a climate emergency. And what that meant was they went to their local council, their local municipal government, and said, we have to start treating this crisis like a crisis and prioritize it in all decisions we make about how we operate as a community. Over the following, from then until now, we've seen now over 2,000 communities of all different sizes around the world have declared climate emergencies, and that ranges from a suburb like Darebin to the European Parliament to countries, the UK, Spain, France, to cities all over the world. And what we saw is that these communities, of course, are also the places we go on holiday, and we felt that tourism has long, those of us working on sustainable tourism have said we need to respond to the needs and the demands of the communities where we operate, and that was very much the frame that we were responding to over-tourism back in the time before COVID changed our model entirely. And what we feel is that if the communities are saying we need to treat the climate emergency as an emergency, then a community-sensitive destination organizations should be doing the same. So over the following 2 years, we very much developed Tourism Declares. A year ago, almost to the day, it would have been in that case a couple of weeks ago, Visit Scotland declared and became the first national tourism organisation to declare a climate emergency. And they did 1 year in advance of hosting COP26 in Glasgow. The timing was very much deliberate, of course. And we now have 400 members from around the world, including a range of other destination organisations. Over the last 6 or 7 months, I think since March this year, we've been working to scale the work of Tourism Declares to really have a reach across the entire industry and to make something that has the sort of organizational resilience and structure to enable us to really accelerate change. We've been working with the United Nations World Tourism Organization, with the United Nations Environment Programme, with the Travel Foundation and Visit Scotland on what many of you will have come across and heard about, I hope, which was the Glasgow Declaration for a Decade of Climate Action in Tourism, which was launched at COP in Glasgow in Scotland just a couple of weeks ago. And we saw that when we launched it, we launched with around 300 launch partners. And in those launch partners, you had countries such as Panama, Barbados, Norway, the Netherlands and Scotland, Kiribati, the whole Organization of Eastern Caribbean States, basically the islands of the Caribbean that are in the hurricane belt, that are some of the most affected places in the world. As I said, low-lying islands such as Kiribati. Also organizations such as Nextdoor that brings together 30 or 40 regions from around Europe working on sustainable tourism. Niseko Town, one of our members here, our participants here have signed, and we've had very positive conversations with the other two organizations from Athens and Slovenia about their support for what we are doing over the coming months. The key focus for the Glasgow Declaration was to enable all of us in the industry to come together and develop a plan for what our business, our destination could do around responding to the climate emergency. In essence, to publish a climate action plan to drive forward and guide your response. And this is how we're going to guide forward the conversation that we're going to have over the course of the next 45, 50 minutes. Because at the heart of those climate action plans is a set of 5 pathways, which the idea is that all organizations, all destinations, all tourism businesses could use these 5 pathways to guide their response, to ensure that they were addressing all of them. And these are going to be, you could say, the chapters that we will talk about over the next few minutes. I'm going to pause in a second and talk with our participants and ask them to introduce themselves. Before I do, I will just explain what those 5 pathways are. The first one, measurement. The second one, decarbonization. Third, regeneration. 4th, collaboration. And 5, finance. Okay, so that's the 5 topics that we will be looking at. So if you have questions around any of those topics you'd like to contribute, please start thinking what they are and add them into the Q&A. But now, before I go any further, let me introduce, or ask to introduce themselves, our 3 participants. So I'll start with, her name is there first, Alexia Panagiotopoulou from the city of Athens. It'd be wonderful if you could say hello.
Hello, thank you, Jeremy, and I would like to thank Green Destinations for giving us this opportunity. I think it is very important at this point because it is an emergency and we should all working towards more sustainable and resilient cities. So I think coming together and discussing about best practices and challenges that we all face is very important. And also it's important because it also generates more interest and enables us to lobby further in our internal organizations and national and local governments. So in Athens, we're also working on a climate adaptation action plan, and we are a step away from signing the Glasgow Declaration because we think it's really important. We're working also towards being certified by Green Destinations as a sustainable tourism destination. And we really much look forward to discussing with everyone about the 5 pillars that you just mentioned.
Brilliant. Thank you, Alexia. If I could move on to you, Eri Suzuki from Niseko Town in Japan.
Thank you, Jeremy. And hello, everybody. My name is Eri Suzuki. I'm a sustainability coordinator at Niseko Town Hall, and Niseko Town is a member of Sustainable Destinations Japan. Prior to this job, I had an opportunity to work with Solar Impulse team, who successfully completed the first solar flight around the world, and they have inspired me so much to sustainable development. And since this June, I have moved to Niseko Town, which is one of the advanced sustainable towns in Japan, to learn more about sustainable development and to work together with the Niseko citizens towards a more sustainable future here and beyond. Our town declared climate emergency last year and made action plans to aim 0 carbon by 2050. And we've just signed Glasgow Declaration a few weeks ago, which I believe Jeremy worked so hard to launch. And I cannot say that I am an expert, I'm afraid, and I feel very humble to be here. But I hope this time together will be a fruitful time to help each other, learn from each other, and build up each other for a more sustainable future and tackle our pressing matter, climate emergency, together. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Eri. And I think it's brilliant that people who don't feel themselves to be experts are part of the conversation and see themselves there, because we're all not experts. We're all learning together and sharing whatever we know and what we don't know. And it's through acknowledging the challenges and how hard this is that we'll be able to move forward together. So it's going to be brilliant to chat together. Can I move on finally then to Matra Clemencich from the Slovenian Tourist Board? Hi there, Matra.
Hello. Thank you, and thank you for having us at this panel. So I come from the Slovenian Tourist Board, where I coordinate the green scheme of Slovenian tourism. As you probably all know, Slovenia has been working on the development of sustainable tourism models for years now, for over a decade. But as our work grows and we have more and more projects in this area, we are also facing more and more problems, or maybe it's better to say that we are starting to see more challenges. And I think this panel, I hope it is going to be very fruitful, because we are going to address, as you said, Jeremy, in the beginning, the five main areas of the Glasgow of the Declaration signed in Glasgow, and those are exactly the areas we have most challenges with at the moment, especially measurement. I think it's extremely important to address measurement, concrete changes in our work, and I'm looking forward to the discussion.
Brilliant. That's a perfect segue into exactly what we're going to talk about right now, which is, as we begin with the first pathway, which, as you said there, Matra, is indeed measurement. It is possibly the hardest, but also the thing we need to get our heads around as fast as possible. So are any of you three destinations in any way addressing measurement, doing anything about it at the moment? I mean, are you able to say what your destination's emissions look like right now? Alexia.
Okay.
I'm very happy to have, I can go around asking everyone, or if someone wants to say something, then that's fantastic.
Well, actually, what we're trying to do a very ambitious plan right now in Athens, and we're trying to, apart from a sustainable tourism observatory, we're trying to unify all information observatories into one major dashboard that will be able to record all data measurements necessary for the environment, for the carbon footprint, for the carrying capacity of the destination. So we're trying to put everything in order. This is very ambitious. We hope that by next year we'll have it figured out, along with the cooperation. And there are lots of challenges there as well, as Masha said, because we have to convince and provide the data software to everyone so as to be able to update it. It's not just the city having the mechanisms to put together this measurements, is to be able to convince and have all stakeholders contribute to it actively. So for now, we are part of the Extrema space network, where we're able to measure the heat and temperature in Athens. We've had major issues with that, especially with the wildfires this summer. We expect that the temperature of the city is going to rise by 2 to 3 degrees Celsius over the next years. So we need to make sure that we create the proper information system and database to measure that and to be able to inform citizens and visitors. And we're also, as part of the C40 network, we make sure to have the carbon footprint and CO2 emissions always recorded, and have in major parts of the city boards where actually people can see in real time the information of the environment, the air we breathe in. But this is an ongoing process, and it's very hard to bridge everyone and have like a dashboard where you're able to combine all different sectors and how they contribute to actually the measurement of the environment in the city.
And this is something that is much more than just for tourism. It's also, this is something, this is for residents, for other businesses, for...
Yes, because we actually, that's the thing, that talking about a sustainable destination and talking about sustainable tourism is all the policies and practices within the city should actually work towards that direction. Because if you want to have, you cannot talk about sustainable destination without talking about sustainable waste management or proper lighting or electrical cars. I mean, it all one thing basically. I mean, we cannot just dissociate anymore.
No, completely. Masha, is anything happening in Slovenia around measurement of tourism climate emissions at the moment?
Yes, we are working on a similar project than Alexia in Athens. So we are seeing digitalization and this one common platform as one of the main things we need to start. As one of the main projects we need to start to really start measuring CO2 emissions. This is also something that is planned in the frame of our next tourism strategy that is currently being prepared for the period of 2022 to 2028. It hasn't been finished yet, so I have no numerical objectives, but I think CO2 emissions and the offsetting will be one of the pillars, one of the most important indicators. However, we realize it is very important, but we haven't been measuring it on a national level until now. So this is one of the deficiencies, maybe, of the green scheme of Slovenian tourism. This not having this information on a national level. We are measuring it on a destination level, or rather, destinations have the possibility to measure it. This year we introduced a tool that was developed in cooperation with Breda University from the Netherlands, but it is quite complicated for destinations. For example, they have to put in market shares, where they get most tourists from, how do these tourists come to the destination, which activities are the most popular. So it's not very detailed, but it is a way to start. So I think for us, the next step will be a concrete measure of concrete measuring of CO2 emissions on a national level.
And is it something that the private sector is involved in as well? I mean, for the hotel measurements, for example, or tour operators, so you actually include those in your measurement?
Yes, they are at the moment. They are involved through the green scheme, so through the certificates that they can obtain. However, some of those certificates don't require measuring CO2 emissions, so it is all very non-systematical at the moment. I think this is one of the main problems. I think in ideal world, we would have measurements for the national level, the business sector, every single destination. That would be the goal in the long run. But at the moment, we don't have businesses measuring CO2 emissions systematically.
Okay. Eri, if I could move on to you. Is there anything particular that Niseko is doing? I know you're earlier in your journey, or are there things that you hear from listening to the other two participants that you think, there is something to take away?
So in Niseko town, we used to have this energy consumption data from the energy company up until 2016. But after that, because of the electricity liberalization, the energy companies are not disclosing, some of the energy companies are not disclosing the consumption data to the town as a whole. And so currently we are not being able to know the whole consumption data. But we are considering of adding in our ordinance to request the energy companies to provide consumption data to us, and so that we know the precise data. And then also we have Niseko Machi, which is a company. Two-thirds is owned privately and 1/3 is owned from Niseko town. And this company has been giving energy saving diagnosis to the whoever wants to take the CO2 emissions to their houses. So this can be also something that's quite useful. But we have a lot work on in this in our town. So yeah.
Brilliant, thank you. I mean, what's interesting hearing all three of your answers is that each one has its own differences, that there is work that you're doing that maybe the others didn't expand upon in the same way, and the need, but also that how much is happening, and that we need to be able to knowledge share as much as anything so that we are all learning and measuring in a coordinated way. There's a question I'm going to ask now from Anu Mezzo, because it is very much related to measurement. And I think it was something you said, Alexia. I apologize if I got the wrong person, it wasn't you. But the question is, can you please elaborate more on how you define and measure the carrying capacity in a destination? I wonder if any of you, yeah, Alexia.
Yes, we're working currently with WITAC and the University of Piraeus, which has a dedicated department for tourism and management, destination management studies. Because what we want to see, at least what we have experienced in the past, is that we get a lot of people, a lot of visitors concentrating in the same areas, and that drops the satisfaction and the visitors' experience, and also it aggravates the situation of the environment around the area. So what we're trying to do is, I'm just going to give you a brief example. Yeah. For example, we see what days we have the biggest cruise ships arriving, and we see that within a week's time, we can have 2 days where all big cruise ships of 6,000 or 7,000 people arrive. And then for the rest of the week, we just have 500 people cruise ships arriving. So this way, what we're trying to do is following this measurement, following this actually statistics, we try and lobby and make sure to convince them, to have this more dispersed, these arrivals throughout the city, because otherwise you get around 10 to 15,000 people trying to visit the Acropolis in just a very specific time slot. So this is actually where we're starting. It's a starting point to see how we can actually make the city center a bit less of traffic congestion and people, and especially with the COVID measures now. And this is a reality that's actually helping us accelerate this need. So we're opting to see in which areas people tend to concentrate and proceed with a diversification of our tourism product, or see how we can provide alternative time slots for everyone to come. I hope this answers a bit the question.
I certainly answers it for me. I think rather than explore any further, because otherwise I will spend a really fascinating hour for some of us talking about measurement, which I would love to spend a whole hour talking about. I'm going to move us on now to talking about decarbonization, which is the second of the key pathways. And you talked a little bit there, Alexia, about something that is happening. The job is very much around addressing the challenge beyond measurement. It's about making the changes. But Masha, moving on to look at some of the stuff that you're doing in Slovenia around decarbonizing tourism in the destination.
So we are trying to influence especially destinations through the Green Scheme of Slovenian Tourism, where we work very, very closely with them through workshops, through presenting these tools that I just mentioned before for the measurement of the CO2. I think the first thing that you need to do if you want to decarbonize, first you need to measure. I think any concrete action first requires some concrete numbers on which to work, so you can later show results. I think one of the biggest challenges for Slovenia in this area at the moment is transport, because I think we could do a lot more already because of our location. Slovenia is located in Central Europe, and we are surrounded by our traditional markets. Such as Italy, Austria, Germany. We are next to Croatia, so I think at the moment we are working on bettering air connectivity of Slovenia. But I think what we are not working on enough is train connectivity, railways, because I think we could prioritize that much more. Having such a good position, we could get a lot more tourists from Germany and Austria by train. Of course, there are train connections, but not as many as there could be. So I think this is one of the challenges that we need to address. What is another important sector in this area of decarbonization is infrastructure, I think. And this we are addressing on a national level. We are going to give a lot of financial support and a lot of funds that we also got from the European Union to improve infrastructure of accommodation facilities in the next few years. And these public tenders are not going to be just about getting sustainability certificates or just about green communication, but these businesses and these hotels are going to be required to do to really change their infrastructure to make it more energy efficient. And this is something we can do on a national level to give this financial frame. And I think this is something that the national level needs to do. So to give ready-to-use tools and to give this national philosophy, national direction to a development in the tourism sector.
And I mean, I'm very interested in you talking about that sort of support that you would give to those businesses that were making the effort. Can you, tell you a little bit more about that? Because how much is that a incentive, and how much of it is a sort of challenge, restriction? Let's say, or a carrot and a stick, to use the.
Well, there is going to be 3 different programs. Most of the money is going to go officially for the recovery of the tourism sector. And in general, any business will be able to apply as long as it is an official accommodation business. And then they're going to get some money, but specifically for the infrastructural changes. So to make it more green and more energy efficient. So it will be open to anyone. But in regards to finance, also what we are leaning towards more and more is to include such criteria in our public tenders, for example, in the tenders of the Slovenian Tourist Board. So already last year and the year before that, we published a special public tender to co-finance the promotion of major Slovenian destinations. And those destinations that had the Slovenia Green label got more points in the tender and more money, more funds. So I think this is one very effective way to influence these actions on a national level.
Yeah, I've certainly 2 or 3 certification schemes that have joined with Tourism Declares over the last year or so have embedded climate action planning and the sort of joining of Tourism Declares inside of their certification, thus rewarding or incentivizing people for making those changes. And I think that is a really important part of it. Eri, from your experience in Niseko, what are some of the things that have been happening both in the town, in the destination, to decarbonize tourism?
So in Niseko town, we're doing like an on-demand bus, and which is like we used to have like a regular bus around the town, but because we have only like 5,000 people in the town, so this bus was not kind of like used properly. Mm-hmm. And so we decided to make an on-demand bus, and so that the people won't be people can make a call and then it's a door-to-door bus, but also like other people will be joining in the same kind of time period, and then so that it will be efficient, that kind of things. And then we are also doing like a reuse of onsen, the hot spring heat, to use it for other things to heat up. And then also we have snow storage, because we have so much snow, and also at the moment, and also we have all the street lights are LED lights, and we probably a lot of the destinations are already introduced green bikes, like e-bikes, and also we for a future plan, we are planning to introduce energy efficient buildings and geothermal energy to tourism sector, which is already done in the public buildings in Niseko town. So we are currently trying to introduce that to the other buildings.
I'm display my ignorance, but what do you mean by snow storage?
So we have these storage, and then we get the snows into this storage, and then it will be it will be there to, even in the summer, you can store the veggies, or you can store our favorite rice in the storage, and then you don't need to use the electricity to keep it cool. So we just use those snow to store.
That's brilliant. I mean, that's a wonderful reuse of, or repurposing of something you have plentiful sources of. Thank you very much. Alexia, you talked a little bit about, in relation to decarbonizing, but in relation to measurement, about some of the stuff you're doing and diversifying with cruise ships or whatever else it might be. What else is happening in Athens around decarbonizing?
So I wanted to say as Masha,
yes, please.
Because what Masha said, actually, we have already launched the Athens Business Green Toolkit. And this was for the historic part of the city where it's the most touristic areas. We're giving an incentive in order for businesses around the tourism part areas of the city to improve the energy efficiency and green operation, so as to actually make a more sustainable experience for visitors. So this is, they can come, like they submit a proposal areas at the businesses, and they can get actually funds based on their needs and their size and their turnover. And this is going to be finalized in the next 18 months. And there has been a great appeal actually on this call. We also had another major call for cultural institutions and hotels, those who have been hit by COVID actually, in order to be able to make sure that they get more digital upgrades and they can get more energy sufficient operations. So we are working on that theme as well. It's from EU funds, from us as well. So Masha, good luck. People are going to be very open, and I mean, people really want that right now. And it's also, it gives us a great opportunity through these incentives to progress with the transformation and our strategic priorities for the city. And also all of our lights for the city lights have been transformed into LED. This is into operation, and it's going to be finalized over the next couple of months. And new vehicles, the city's vehicles are turning all electric or hybrid. So in this sense, we're trying as far as we can to move towards that direction. And there is a major law as well in Athens now, in major cities. It used to be in the past, where only cars with specific CO2 emissions or electric cars can circulate in the city center, actually.
Thank you.
Many people are very angry with that. They're not very happy, but it has made a great difference. I mean, it started again from the 25th of October, and it makes a great difference.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to ask you, Masha, I'll show the limit of my experience. From Ljubljana, you've had an awful lot of success around altering the traffic patterns there. I mean, is that something that continues and has expanded?
I don't know if it expanded a lot. Yes, some streets have been closed additionally, but in the beginning we had the same problem as Alexia just mentioned. The city center of Ljubljana was closed in 2007, I think. Before you had, buses, cars going through the city center, through the triple bridge, past the town hall. And so Ljubljana, the city center is still somewhat medieval. So the streets were small. They are still small. And when it closed in 2007, there was a lot of unhappy people, because people were used to be able to take their car and park directly in front of the market or some stores and so on. And this was, I think, what bothered them the most at the beginning, this fear that they wouldn't be able to get as close as possible and to be cut off from some services, especially elder people. But I think through the years, we really saw it was the right move. And I think if you ask people of Ljubljana now, they're all going to be very happy with the closed city center. In the end, it's turned out really to be the right decision, I think, especially for tourism. Because I remember Ljubljana I was still really young when there was still traffic in the center, and there was a lot less events on the streets. There was less festivals, less life in the streets, and now you can have theater, you can have music festivals. All the cafes have terraces. I think for tourism, it really helped. So in the end, it was a good decision. Yeah.
Brilliant. I'll use that opportunity to move us on to the third of the 5 pathways, which is regeneration. And I mean, both from what you said there, Alexia, around the importance of framing what we're doing inside of the COVID recovery, looking at some of the funds that are coming forward, around the world, but in particular in Europe, where we are, and then connecting to what you said there, Masha, about how making these changes, maybe from an environmental perspective, has had such a significant impact socially on actually improving the quality of life. And from the very beginning, when the regeneration pathway was written into the Glasgow Declaration, it was in order for us as an industry to focus on the opportunities we have to make positive change, and that the way that in all manner of different ways, whether that is the stimulating of the regeneration of local communities, as you talk about in Ljubljana, or whether it is about being able to finance the preservation and restoration and regeneration of endangered habitats, supporting through non-extractive jobs for local communities, etc. And I wonder how, in your own experience, in your own destinations, how you have seen or how you are exploring this really positive opportunity to restore and to regenerate that tourism hopefully can provide. I'll start by looking to you, Eri, as you are not in Europe and very much in Japan, and it's surrounded by a very beautiful destination. What are you able to do there?
So in Niseko town, we have like 67% of the land is forest. But we haven't been able to have a proper plan to manage this forest, and so we have enacted a forest division so that we can manage and sustain our forest in a healthy way, and also those trees will be used without a waste within our local area. And so that it will be, our town will be economically revitalized, as well as the forest will be revitalized. And that's kind of what we are trying to do here in Niseko.
And is it working well? How is it going?
It's actually, we just enacted it this last August.
Okay, so it's early days.
It's early days, but we've been sort of inviting the school kids and also other people who are interested in looking at watching this forestry that we do. It's done in a quite interesting way. I'm not sure if it's a common thing in Europe, but we won't be cutting down the trees in a large area, but instead we will be cutting down the trees in a very small area, and then there will be a good pathway for the rain, so that it won't be flooding, won't be happen. And also that as you cut some of the trees, and then these little trees can grow better, and then the wind will go and then the sun will go, so that these little trees can grow better, and then that sort of thing. So the school kids are very fascinated to learn that. So yeah, so that's what we've been doing, and we find it very fascinating. Yeah.
Fascinating. I mean, I'd love to learn more about all of it, because I love the forests. Masha, your picture behind you is clearly surrounded by a great deal of forests. Is this something, this sort of nature regeneration, is this something that is able to happen in Slovenia through the use of tourism? Are you being able to expand national parks, engage people in this sort of closer relationship with nature?
No, we haven't expanded national parks thanks to tourism yet, but we have different initiatives. We have, for example, some valleys in the mountains that up until 10 years ago were open for traffic, and some are still open for traffic. And then so this was the decision of communities, of local communities and municipalities. They started to close off those roads, and access with cars was forbidden, and people had to pay a little bit more for the transport to a certain waterfall or to a certain valley. And with that money is then used to renovate either infrastructure or to put it goes back to the community, and they can improve their tourism offer. I think this happens a lot around Slovenia, but also in the national park in the Alps. I think in general, one of the ways to invest back is to make some services, also natural services, to make people pay for some natural services, or rather to monetize them, because I think tourism always has an impact on the environment, and people. I mean, what better way to show this than through money, you know? I mean, you pay for transport, you pay for accommodation. Why not give a little bit of support to nature as well, to nature protection? I think this would be one very good mechanism to encourage that.
I totally agree. Alexia, I mean, yes, you're talking on behalf of a city, and I don't want to presuppose, but I'm going to mention it, but you know, Greece, of course, like much of the Mediterranean, has been seriously challenged by the wildfires over the course of this summer and before, which obviously threaten life and livelihood as much and more than they threaten tourism, but they also, of course, threaten tourism. Is there a way that you're able to use tourism to support either adaptation or the restoration subsequent to these fires?
Well, first of all, it's one of our social CSR activities that we propose to Congress organizers and to also visitors to come and plant a tree in Athens. There are regular, actually, initiatives from various organizations. So, I mean, whoever comes, they can always find there's going to be a weekend tree planting in some of the surrounding mountains and hills of the city. But we've done something that's very important. We've had a research of the geolocation map of the trees in our cities, because it's very important for us, because apart from the wildfires, there's lots of drought during summertime. So we had to find a way to see which trees and which plants are going to be more easy to live during the city, and so that we get lots of green space, or as much as green space as possible. And this has helped a lot. And we've had initiatives like Adopt Your Tree, urging citizens to actually adopt a tree in their neighborhood and make sure that they plant it and they take care of it in order to maintain the greenery. And this is also something that we urge visitors to do. It's a very nice also getting together citizens and visitors initiative to work for a better good. We're also working for the Small Parks initiative. It has started a few months ago. We already have 8 small parks in various neighborhoods, and that also have major tourist interest. Actually, it was the Embassy of Japan last week that donated one to the city of Athens. And it's a very nice garden. I'll send you photos of it, which was with the Ambassador of Japan. And this is actually how we create green spaces out of abandoned areas or land plots that were not built. And we're turning them into green spaces, so in order to provide more green spaces to citizens. And we provide also, our mayor's vision was to have the Great Walk, which is actually the pedestrianization of basic areas of the city in order to plant more trees, and the regeneration of 300 acres area and the suburbs of the city of Athens, just for planting trees and sports and culture. So we're doing as much as we can actually to create green spaces and to fortify these efforts and make them actually areas of great tourism interest.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. I'm going to have to move on because now I've got 10 minutes left to do 2 out of 5 pathways, but such is the way. In essence, collaboration that we have been collaborating throughout, and there's been many examples of what you've just said. You just talked there about work with the Japanese ambassador, and so there are examples of collaboration throughout our time, but let's look at it specifically. So Masha, I mean, either in Slovenia or looking beyond Slovenia to relationships with other destinations, how is your response to the climate emergency, sort of how are you ensuring you benefit from collaboration?
So in Slovenia, the Slovenian Tourist Board is working on the national level. And here we are connecting with other destinations in 2 ways. First, through the Green Scheme of Slovenian Tourism, we are working very closely with 59 smaller destinations from across the country. So we are guiding them through this process, looking to see that they get recertified. We always see with which criteria they have the most problems. And so this isn't only a certification scheme, it's actually a developmental scheme, and we are trying to follow their development as much as possible together with our accredited partner that is helping us with this scheme. And then on the national level, we are, as I mentioned before, working on our new strategy, and we are becoming more and more aware that this strategy isn't going to be just a tourism strategy. Someone mentioned in the beginning of this panel that tourism isn't, it isn't just tourism. We cannot change anything ourselves. Tourism is also infrastructure, it's agriculture, it's food, and all of these sectors. So the tourism strategy is being prepared, and we are trying to include as much as possible other ministries. So not just, associations in general, but it is of key importance to include ministries, because in Slovenia, tourism is under the Ministry of the Economy, but then we also have the Ministry of Infrastructure, Agriculture, and Environment. And I think all of these sectors are extremely important. And this needs to be done on the national strategic level if we want to see changes on the terrain, specifically in tourism later.
Thank you. Eri, from your experience in Niseko, do you sort of hear familiarity in what Masha is saying there to your own experiences? Are you benefiting from collaboration already in what you're doing?
So yeah, we do believe that we also believe that the decarbonization is not just for the tourism industry, but also the destination itself. And Niseko town is quite famous for its unique governance, especially for community initiative town development. And actually, the other week, there was a gentleman who is an accommodation owner came to a town hall, and then he was like wondering if he wants to take action for the decarbonization and what, but we don't have the financial support, and also lacking a know-how, and so like also we want he wanted to collaborate with other business owners in Niseko town and a DMO and the town hall. So he came over and so asked for help. So we were, so we want to collaborate with him. So we are connecting relevant people and researching some government grant, and also planning to have our first meeting next week or so. And so we're going to lay out some issues and goals and decide each role, what role and stuff like that. And also our mayor always says that we should be a big supporter, not a service provider as a town hall. And we should encourage the public initiatives, and we should support them as much as we can. And don't take those initiatives away from them. And so we are here to support our local citizens, and as well as encouraging them. That's what we've been doing.
No, fantastic. And Alexia, from the Athens perspective.
Well, we work on a multi-level cooperation team. First of all, we have the international, which means that we are members of all international networks. Also, we were in the C40 Resilient Cities, Extreme Heat Resilience Alliance, and we tried the GSTC, of course, Future of Tourism. We try to be part in all major, actually, networks that will enable us to get best practices for cities and incorporated them into the tourism strategy of the city. And then on a local level and national level, we organize closely, of course, with ministries and the Minister of Tourism and Infrastructure and Development, because more in an effort to make us enable our strategies. And we see that we're quite ahead of strategic planning in terms of local government. So we make sure to provide our input also, because it is the capital of the city, of the country. So we tend to be pioneers in that. And what we do also, we have created a scheme with the private public sector. We have This Is Athens and Partners, or the Adapt Your City, the Athens Partnership, which is actually the private sector. We collaborate closely and we do regular consultation and workshops so as to promote a bottom-up approach and make sure that all major infrastructure or major changes that we want to bring about in the city, it's already discussed with the private sector so that we get acceptance, and they make it easier. Actually, they also endorse it and raise awareness throughout their network as well. And we see that this way it works well. Of course, there will always be people who are not going to be satisfied because they don't like to change. But overall, we see that as much as you talk to the local industries and you prove that there is a plan and that there is a consistency, everyone embraces it in the end and becomes enablers of this strategy.
Fantastic, thank you. Now we've only really got 3 or so minutes left, so I'm going to ask each of you for just a very short sort of 1-minute answer on the last pathway, which is finance, which is of course the thing we need to make sure that we are able to deliver the decarbonizing, the regeneration, the measurement. And from the context of your own destination, what do you think tourism and the destination can really do to ensure the funding is there to decarbonize? Alexia, as you were talking with me now, I guess I'm going to stay with you and then I'll work my way around. So for Athens, where does the money come from?
Well, certainly a lot of money comes from EU funds. And so we have to be very careful on how to allocate the budgets in order to be able to provide incentives for the private sector and also give them the opportunity to invest themselves in these practices. Especially for Athens, that is, the tourism economy is a very essential part of the local economy. We try to make sure that we provide a big number of incentives and that we cover some costs for the promotion of the destination, for example, so that we give them room to invest in green strategies, especially for the tourism businesses. But it would mostly have to come from EU funds and local funds.
Okay, thank you. Eri, you're not going to have access to EU funds. Where would you be, from Niseko town, where is the way that you will fund the decarbonizing of the tourism sector?
So we're considering of introducing environmental tourism tax and to use it for supporting tourism businesses and introducing energy efficient buildings and so on. And also enterprise invitation, but only those companies who shares the same vision as Niseko town and follows our guidelines. And so that we can get the financial support and workforce and technology, etc., etc. That's what we've been working on.
Brilliant, thank you very much. And then finally, Masha, speaking from Slovenia.
Yeah, I think the money should firstly come from the national level. So for Slovenia, that means EU funds and of course our ministry. But also we are trying to influence this in the same way that Eri just mentioned. So maybe give more financial support to businesses who have already shown and proved that they want to improve their work, their infrastructure. I think this is one of very effective mechanisms to influence that.
Wonderful. Well, we are already a couple of minutes over, and although there have been a few questions, I haven't asked them specifically because the topics that people have been asking about have been around leadership, around finance, around collaboration. So I hope that very much we have come together and provided some answers on where these 3 destinations and your very honest, open and supportive answers have provided that guidance. It therefore is only me to very much, first of all, thank our three participants for the time that you have given and for all the fascinating insights into the experiences of three very different destinations that you have given. To thank the still 89 participants who have been here and stayed the whole way through and shared your comments and conversations. To thank Green Destinations for hosting this and for, in the first place, for setting it up, and then for all the work you have been doing over the years, ever since I first discovered you, in fact, in Ljubljana many years ago. I hope that we will all be able to be together in ITB in Berlin. I hope that will be a real world event, and there the ITB Awards and the next Global Green Destinations events will be taking place, and people will be able to not talk in squares, but actually join together in the real world. That would be quite wonderful. And I would definitely be amiss if I didn't also encourage everyone who is listening, who hasn't already done so, to sign the Glasgow Declaration and join us together in decarbonizing the sector that we all love. So I will drop one thing into the chat, which is the link to the Glasgow Declaration. Thank you very much indeed, everyone, for all of your time and your support, and I look forward to tourism recovering in 2022 together. Thank you.